Throughout my life, I've ended up in various situations that have left me paranoid, untrusting of strangers, and very aware of my surroundings. I often try to forget about it, but some of them are too hard to forget. One such story happened to me as I was first moving out for college. This was my second year, so I was moving into a house as I had lived in residence in the first. It was quite a large house. I had 7 other roommates, and it was in a city that was known to be fairly rough. High amounts of crime and violence in it, but the neighborhood that we moved into I thought hadn't been too bad, or at least didn't have a bad crime rate. Since I had to move farther than the rest of my roommates, I had to come up quite a bit earlier, coming about 3 to 4 days before the next person to move in. In my house, I had got there and placed all my stuff in my room. One of the details of the house is that whenever you moved in a room, the lights would turn on. There were no light switches except for one right by the entrance and one on the back patio. A few of my other friends had moved into nearby houses, but no one in my house yet. So I had decided to, rather than sitting home alone, to go out and meet out with some of my friends. We had a fairly normal day, going to Dairy Queen and talking about how our summer had been since we haven't seen each other for several months. Things were great and we talked till late, and I eventually got dropped off at probably around 11 p.m. But to my surprise, when I pulled up to my house that I was the only one living in, it wasn't dark as I had expected, but the motion sensing lights were all on. The front door had been locked, so I had no idea what to expect, but then I completely forgot that the gate was open and didn't have a way to lock, so the back screen door had been open. I was hoping it was just a glitch in the system and motion sensing lights maybe came on without anyone being in the house, but needless to say, I was quite afraid and unsure of what to do. All my stuff had been packed into my room, and I lived on the first floor of a 3-story building, having a terrifying basement with ash all over it from a previous fire from the year before, and the attic, or the upstairs, which had 6 of the 8 rooms in the building. Upon entering the house, I grabbed one of the knives from the kitchen supplies I had brought and a large lead pipe in order to defend myself. I snuck around the first floor, not hearing much of anything. Some of the lights started to turn off as I left the room. The timer was maybe a minute to 2 minutes before it would turn off. So this frightened me even more, knowing that someone could have been in that area just quite recently. I had checked all the rooms downstairs and realized there was no one down there. I refused to go in the basement, and I started to sneak my way upstairs to look into the rooms to see if anyone had still been there. Making my way to the left of the hall, nothing seemed to be out of order, and there was nothing really to be taken because none of the other people had moved in yet. As I made my way to the right end of the hallway, though, where it's a little bit more enclosed, I could hear briefly, very quickly, coming from one of the rooms that had been shut, that I had remembered previously being open. I heard, "Shh." Needless to say, I was terrified. I didn't want to find out if there was anyone in there. I couldn't bring myself to go in there. So I went downstairs and went into my room. The locks worked on the inside, so I could lock someone out while being inside, and I had all the possessions in the house were in my room. So I locked myself in my room and I propped up a suitcase against the door. I held the pipe and knife in my hand as I sat in my room trying to fall asleep. Somehow I was able to fall asleep after several hours from an adrenaline dump. I had figured the people had made their way out of the house at that time anyways, for there was nothing to steal, and they were unable to get to me. The days after this, I had let it slip from my memory a little bit, and even to this day, I often forget about it happening, thinking it was more of a bad dream or just a memory. But nearly a year later, someone did end up breaking into our house and stealing things from us from that same entryway, and sometimes I wonder if it was the same person that made off with my laptop and almost my friends as well. Fortunately, one of my roommates was able to catch them in the act, and we were able to get their coat off them. The police eventually found who it was and arrested them, though I never recovered my laptop. It's kind of freaky to think that I could have been robbed the first day I ever got there, or even worse.